Welcome back. In this session, we would be discussing reports for project monitoring, and you have already studied different types of projects and how the projects are important for NGOs, the Gantt charts, the PERTs, the CPMs. So there are different aspects of project management, but when the project is made, there is a monitoring report to be prepared. And this is very, very important for NGOs because they need to understand what exactly went into the projects. In the later stage of this session, I'll take you through a screen recording where you can see how you can prepare a monitoring and evaluation report. There are certain parameters, the examples are given, the indicators are given, how to prepare the monitoring report. Now that would be very helpful for you in the sense is because every NGO has its specific kind of working. Like every business organization has its own culture, has its own working style, has its own way of handling the people, handling the employees or the human resources. Similarly, it is with NGOs. No two NGOs are similar in nature. Every NGO has its own working style. So the reports are also prepared as per the needs of that particular NGOs, and that is why for project monitoring, we need to have specific indicators which needs to be identified by the NGOs themselves, and then accordingly they can work. Now, what is project monitoring? I won't go into details what is a project, how the proposal is made, and what kind of issues are there because other sessions are dedicated to it. We'll straight away come to the concept of project monitoring. Now, this includes monitoring the actual progress as compared to the planned progress. Now, there's a difference between the actuals and the plans. We had studied the financial management part, also the accounting part also, where the actuals and the plans are discussed. Similarly, it happens in the projects also, because in monitoring the actual progress, what actually happened, that has to be monitored. Planned progress is like you have planned that this is how the project will go through and ultimately reach the goal. But actually, what kind of progress has been done? What timeline the progress was made? So this is very important for any kind of project, be it in a profit-making organization or not for profit-making organization. Since we are concentrating on not-for-profit making organization, actual progress becomes all the more important because there are certain projects which have to be implemented in a particular span of time. If you take it further, they don't have their relevance, they don't have that kind of sanctity with that project. So to know if one has achieved the objective of the project, one has to go for actual progress. So when we are discussing project monitoring, so for effective monitoring, so monitoring is something which needs to be very effective, and if it is not effective, there is no relevance of monitoring. So for effective monitoring of the project, the objectives of the project should be broken down into key activities. And what are the key activities? The key activities have to be decided by the respective NGOs because for one NGO, one key activity may be important, but for the other NGO, it may not be. Similarly, for other NGO, if one or two key activities are important, they may not be of relevance to the previous NGO. So therefore, the key activities are very, very specific to the NGOs. And monitoring a project involves tracking the results of these key activities to ascertain whether a particular project has been implemented correctly or not. That is very, very important to understand. So monitoring a project involves tracking the result, as we had discussed earlier, that how to measure the progress of the project, the implementation of the project, that is the actual progress. So this can be done by tracking the results on a specific timeline basis. So when I'll show you the screen recording how to prepare the monitoring and evaluation report, you'll get a better idea that what am I talking now. For monitoring a project, it involves measuring the results of a project on the basis of the project indicators. Again, these project indicators are defined based on the key activities and they are specific to a particular NGO. So project indicators are certain kind of activities which are designated for achieving the results of a particular project. And project monitoring is something which should be planned before implementing a project. Once the project goes on the field or it is being implemented, before that only the project monitoring schedule has to be prepared and the project monitoring activities has to be planned, because from day one the monitoring activity starts, because that only measures the actual progress of any project. So therefore, the monitoring starts from day one as soon as the project rolls on, as soon as the project starts. Why do the NGOs, they need project monitoring? What's the need? Nobody is going to question them. But why do they need it? In business organization, of course, the auditing is there. They need to be questioned. Even in NGOs, there is an auditing. But why do they need project monitoring? They are not accountable to anybody because they are the voluntary organization. People are committed towards certain cause. So why do we need it? Identifying the required changes while the project is being implemented. Now, there is a kind of a Feed India project. Now, suppose this Feed India project rolls on. When you start monitoring, you start finding certain kind of flaws, certain kind of loopholes which needs to be changed, which for the next phase if the project is implemented again. So these loopholes can, or these flaws, they can be, or the mistakes, they can be changed, they can be rectified in a manner that the project is effective in the second phase. So while moving ahead, you learn. It's just like driving. So when you drive more, you learn more, you come to, you experience different circumstances on the road. Similarly, when the project is being implemented, this monitoring helps us to understand what more modifications needs to be done when the project can be implemented in the second phase, or even if the project requires certain major modifications in between also, that can be made. So measuring the performance of a team at a given point of time, that is also very important, and it helps in justification of the capital invested. It helps in preventing the failure of the project. It helps in avoiding uncertain circumstances and anticipating for the adversities. The monitoring of a project involves checking the following aspects of a project. Now, these are some of the aspects which needs to be taken into consideration while monitoring a project. The first one is a schedule, or if you want to pronounce it, you can say it as schedule. Whether the project will be completed on time or not, the schedule gives all the details. It's a kind of a chart which gives from day one at what time this particular part of the project has been implemented, it rolls on, where it reaches, and when it finalizes. The schedule covers all the timelines for the project. The cost of the project is not going beyond the budget. That has to be ensured that the cost of the project is optimal and it is not going beyond the budget, because NGOs they have lot of problems getting the funds. So cost is one of the major factors which needs to be monitored. The outcome, that means the results, the goals. The outcome of the project is as desired or not. One needs to understand whether the outcome of the project is as desired or not. How do we measure it? It has to be done while monitoring a project. Quality. Quality has become a buzzword now, even in service organizations, in NGOs, everywhere. The quality has become very important. Now, for example, I give you the organization Feed India, which is feeding the people or the migrant workers or the poor throughout the country. Now, feeding the people is a good job. It's definitely nice to feed people, poor people, and make them satisfied. But then the quality of the food comes into picture. What kind of food is being provided to those poor people? Don't they have the right of the quality food? So for that, quality comes into picture. So how well the outcome of project is achieved, that is one thing, and that quality is measured if it is food, whether it is as per the norms, whether it is the food, the quality of food is good. Like Akshay Patra, it is providing the midday meals. So the quality comes into picture in the midday meals also. So that is why the project has one of the major components of quality also while monitoring it. Now coming to the reporting of project monitoring concept. Now project monitoring has been done, how and where it should be reported. When we call or we talk about the concept of reporting. So reporting for project monitoring includes reporting the progress of the project. So there is dedicated persons, human resources available. Now even the digital thing can be used. There are artificial intelligent concepts where you can use certain softwares which can monitor the progress of the project automatically. If you feed certain parameters into it, automatically on the day basis, the daily basis, or on the timely basis, they start monitoring the project. So even in this case, you can use ICT. So progress reports should be prepared along the dimensions applicable to the activity. As I spoke about it earlier, the key activities needs to be defined, and based on that, project indicators needs to be defined. So when we report the progress, it allows the project manager to anticipate the resource shortages, the schedule delays, and various other bottlenecks for the project to be completed on time. This report is kind of an overview of the current status of the project, and the formal record of the state of a project is given at a particular time. Reports can be prepared on weekly, monthly basis depending upon the size of the project, and it is prepared for all the stakeholders to give them updates about the projects. We have spoken about reports in a sense in the first course, Introduction to NGO Management. We have discussed the detailed aspects of what are the reports, what kinds of reports, long reports, short reports are there, how the reports are prepared for a particular project or for the NGOs. So all this we have discussed. So to revise, one can go back to that course also, or that particular week also. Now, project monitoring report also includes all the information which is related to the project, such as the name of the project, the sponsor's name, expected date of completion, objectives of the project, and beneficiaries. All this is very important because whosoever has funded a particular project, because for NGOs it is based on funding, so they need to know where the money has gone and how the money has been spent, whether the money has been spent properly or not. So this has to be described properly, and it provides a high-level summary of key actions taken and the decisions made. It should disclose the perceived risk and complexities, and risk is one thing which is the measure of uncertainty, and that is why project monitoring is very, very important. Now, these are types of project monitoring report which includes these concepts. First is the status of the report. What is the status of the report? What is the risk assessment value of the report? What is the budget of the report? What is the timeline of the report? What is the schedule of the report? And what are the personnels involved in the report? So this monitoring report should contain all these details. Personnel report. Now this includes the details regarding available workforce for a given project, and it also provides information about the work assigned to each member of the team, because the progress has to be measured. So besides each member, what workload is there, so accordingly the progress has to be monitored. It helps in allocation of human resources to different activities, which depends upon the workload of each member. Status report. This provides information about a project's progress to the relevant stakeholders, and it includes the details regarding like activities which have been completed, activities which are under progress, the amount of budget spent, the problems occurred, the changes occurred, etc. When we talk about the schedule report, it provides the information about the time frame of different activities which are required for completing a particular project. And this includes the details regarding activities which has been completed on time, activities which are running late, activities which have been completed before time, and the activities which are scheduled to happen. There's a risk assessment report which provides the information regarding the risks, the challenges related to the project, and it categorizes each risk based on severity and likelihood of happening. As I said, risk is the measure of uncertainty. So therefore, the risk assessment report is very important for project, and specifically in case of NGOs, because everything depends on the project, the success of that particular project. And it helps the stakeholders in assessing the risk and providing solution in order to achieve the project's objectives. There's a budget report also. It provides information on the amount of budget consumed by the resources and every single material used. It includes the details of all the expenses incurred for a particular activity and provides details on overspending or underspending. And it helps in controlling the budget of the project, which is very important for in case of project monitoring. Time report. This is another kind of a report which provides the information on the amount of time for which each resource has been assigned to an activity, and it includes the details regarding time each worker has given to a project, amount of work completed within a given period of time, time for which a machine has been running on a project, overburdening or underutilization of resources. The whole concept is that optimum utilization of resource should be there. That is why this is very important. Therefore, the project monitoring report has to be prepared. These are some of the effective ways of making the reports. Data should be accurate and recorded in real time. The report should be precise. It should provide only the relevant details. Use of graphics will help in making the concept more clearer. The report has to be an honest report, so therefore be honest. Reports, inviting feedbacks and discussions that can be incorporated in the report. Delegate work to other members of the team so that overburden or a specific kind of burden is not there on one person. Avoid using technical table labels in the report. Keeping the format of the report consistent, that makes a lot of difference. Now we will just see how a monitoring and evaluation report is written. For an NGO, this is just an example because every NGO is going to work as per their needs, and the source this has been taken from the website Tools for Development. And this is just an example, and to take you through an idea, or just to give you an idea that how monitoring and evaluation report is prepared. Let us now see how to write a monitoring and evaluation report, and this I have taken it from the website toolsfordevelopment.org, and it is termed as TOOLS4DEV. Now this site, they have given a beautiful mention of how the report can be written and how the report can be evaluated and monitored and evaluated. So starting with the whole concept, you'll just find there are practical tools for writing a particular monitoring and evaluation report. There's a PDF also, you can always download it, and this is very popular with them. Now I was talking about indicators. The first step in writing any kind of monitoring report is mentioning the indicators. Now how to design a program and the logical frameworks, all this has already been done. Now you need to choose the indicators for each level of your program, that is the outputs, the outcomes and the goals reached. So each indicator should be directly related to the outcomes and outputs, something which can be measured, something which is used, effectively used for the concept. Suppose, for example, this example they have given for the program where the output is on education. So we'll just see how they have worked, and in this you see the goals are there and the indicators are there. Suppose the goal is to 10%, the goal of the program is 10% increase in the number of grades 6 primary students continuing on a high school within 3 years. So the indicator would be percentage of grades 5 to 6 primary students continuing on to high school. This has then to be measured. The outcome would be improve reading proficiency amongst children in grades 5 to 6 by 20% within 3 years. What would be the indicator of the outcome? The average reading proficiency amongst children in grades 5 to 6. This is the indicator, and this indicator will show whether the goal has been reached or not. The other output can be 1500 grade 5 to 6 students with low reading proficiency complete a reading summer camp. Indicator for this output would be number of students completing the reading summer camp. That number has to be mentioned. So some organizations have very strict rules about how the indicators are to be written. They usually start with the number, and they have certain adjectives. But then what happens is these strict rules may not work towards the beneficial outcome. So it is advisable as per them just to make the indicators and written in a broader way, so where every human resource is involved, and of course including the donor also, and they can understand, because understandability is very important. Now coming to the point, how to define each indicator. Now once the indicators have been finalized, the definition of each indicator has to be written. For the earlier indicators which we have mentioned here is, they have mentioned the definition and then they have calculated the percentage. For example, one indicator in the education program is defined as percentage of grade 6 primary students continuing on a high scale. Now definition would be this number of students who start the first day of grade 7 divided by the total number of the grade 6 students in the previous year multiplied by 100. Now suppose there are 80 students who start with the first day of grade 7 say in 2013 or 2020, divided by 175 grade 6 students in say 2021, multiplied by 100, which is equal to 46%. After writing this particular definition, besides each indicator, one needs to identify how the data will be achieved. So the data source has to be mentioned, because for a project, the data, if there is no proper data source, then the information, the indicators, they don't have any value. So you need to know how frequently the data would be measured, maybe monthly, quarterly, annually, as I told earlier in the reports also. So one has to measure the baseline and set the target. That goal has to be set, and before the program starts, one needs to measure the starting value of each indicator, which is known as the baseline. Suppose in the education example, you would need to measure the current percentage of grade 6 students continuing on to grade 7 before you start the program. Once this baseline is set for target improvement, then the other things can be done. One has to identify who is responsible and where the results will be reported. Again, in this case, the human resource play an important part. So final step is to decide who will be responsible for measuring each indicator. So these names, that is why we talked about types of reports. In types of reports, who will be there is a personnel report also. So this report has to be mentioned. So you can also download the template, the framework from this site, and this will help in preparing the monitoring and evaluation report. So this particular way of preparing a monitoring and evaluation report helps in effective completion and implementation of the project. You've just seen the screen recording, and you've seen that how a monitoring and evaluation report can be prepared. For a particular NGO, the key indicators have been defined and certain parameters have been taken into consideration to describe the evaluation report. And this is how a project can be monitored in any NGO. But the difference is that the key indicators, they differ in different NGOs. So this is all about project monitoring. See you in the next session. Thank you so much.